Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Brie. Today, we're going to be reading spring books. I like making spring recommendation videos, and this year I just feel like I haven't read enough new ones that feel like spring to me to actually recommend. So I thought in this reading vlog I could pick books that would invoke a spring vibe to me and then read them and let you know if they do feel like spring. So I have an ebook, and that is the prequel to Alat's Way. So it's called Shane Lene, and it's by Darcy Little Badger, and it's like events from the grandma of Alat's Way, her life. And so that I have due as an arc, and I do think it's going to be spring vibes, so I think I'm going to try to get to that one first. Then we have a YA book that's been on my shelves for a while called The Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy I. Lin, sorry. And this is a tea-inspired fantasy. It's got Chinese mythology in it, but it's also following this girl who, it's like tea magic and tea poison, and I think her sister's sick, so she takes off to try to help her sister. And this one's been on my shelves for a while, but if this cover does not scream spring to you, I don't know what does. And so really I'm picking this for the cover, but also I feel like tea for some reason makes me think of tea parties, and I think of spring when I think of tea parties. So that's why this one's on the list. So I hopefully will get to that one. Then I have Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson. This is a horror that's about a woman who I believe is meets another woman and starts to become obsessed with her. And I know it's at a farmer's market, so that also makes me think of spring. And I just think this cover sings, invokes spring. I don't know what I'm trying to say. And also, I've been really enjoying horror throughout the year, and so I've been trying to find horror that I think are gonna be good in every season. So that's why I want to try this one and see if I really think this is a spring horror. Then this one is Una Out of Order by Margarita Montemore, and this, for some reason, time travel or books that play with time always feel spring to me. Plus this cover is very bright and airy. So this is about a woman who sees her life in different timelines. So one year she might be 19, and then the next year she's 26. So she's hopping around in her life. So she's not living her life in a linear order. And so sometimes she knows things before they happen because she's lived before. I just find that really interesting. And I think thinking about life and how you want to live it and things like that, for me, is a very spring feeling because it's new growth and moving forward in life. And so I feel like that's why time books really work with me in spring. So I really want to try this and see if it gives spring vibes, but also I just want to read it. Then I have The Fairy Bargains of Prospect Hill by Rowena Miller. This is giving me spring vibes because of the fairies. So it's about, I think, a town where they bargain with fairies and stuff, and I think we're following sisters, and they're going to make bargains with fairies. And I don't really know much more than that, but I had picked it out because it's a historical fantasy as well, and it has to do on a farm and stuff. So that's why I'm getting spring. Spring farm fairy vibes sounds like my thing. And fairies to me is definitely peak spring feeling. So we got this one on the list. Then I have another horror called Cursed Bunny by Bora Chung. This is a group of short stories, and I don't really know much about them, but the bunny on the cover is what got me with spring. And like I said, I'm trying to find horror that is spring to me. I just think that this cover is giving spring, and I want to read some horror in spring. So hopefully this will be a good horror for spring. And then in the same vein, we've got Bunny by Mono Awad, and this is one that I know I need to read so bad, and I just haven't read it yet. And I do think that this is also going to deal with obsession a little bit, same with Bloom. I don't really know what to expect because I've tried to keep it very vague for myself so I'm not spoiled. But I mean, the cover. Need I say more? And then the last two I have, one is a graphic novel. It's Moth Keeper by Kate O'Neill. They wrote The Tea Dragon Society, which I really, really loved, and I would say that one feels like spring for sure. But this one, I don't really know. It's something about a girl who helps with moths. Being a moth keeper is a great honor, and so she protects the creatures, and the night village needs the flower to thrive. So it has to do with a flower. Feels spring. I mean, this cover was giving spring, and I feel like a graphic novel like this, a cozy graphic novel, to me always feels like spring. So that's why that one's on the list. And then the last one is Daisies for Innocence by Bailey Cattrall. I've had this on my TBR for probably a couple years now, 3. And it is a cozy mystery of an enchanted garden. There's you know, a cat, a dog on the cover. There's a garden, and it says everything's coming up roses until someone's pushing up daisies. So I just always thought this one sounded really good, and it's got like some fantasy into it because like it says enchanted garden, though I don't know if that's actually accurate or they just mean like enchanted and like beautiful way, or if they mean it in a fantasy way. But my hope is a fantasy way. So that one as well. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 books to choose from. Ideally, I'll read like 5 in this vlog, so we'll see what I get to. But yeah, I'm very excited because I'm excited to find more spring recs. And if you've read any of these and you like want to tell us if they are spring or not, please leave a comment down below. Also, if you just have spring like recommendations, please leave them down below. I would love to hear them. And yeah, let's just get into the video.
I could sit around and wait all day. You lay easy on my mind, like a candle I just burn away. All we really have is time.
So I am, 76 pages in, and I can tell you what this is about. So we're following 2 sisters, one Elaine, who is a farmer, like her family is descended from farmers on this Prospect Hill, and she has taken over the family farm and has to run it with her husband, but like her husband's a lawyer and she like runs the farm. I don't know what year this is set in. I feel like they never said, but it's around the time of the suffragette movement. She like is dealing with obstacles, you know, being a woman and running this farm, and she's kind of trying to prove herself. And we're following her and then her sister Delphine, who Delphine is getting married to this man in town who runs like the glass factory, and Elaine and stuff is kind of apprehensive, but Delphine is like excited about the marriage, and it's a big match because he's like very well off and they are well known in their community, but this is like her like moving up essentially. And we're following them on her like a couple days before her wedding, and then during her wedding, and then after. And what we know about the family is that they made a bargain with the Fae back in the day, and which is why they're so like prosperous in this land. And it's kind of like within the culture too of the area to deal with fairies and leave out little like things for bargains, like small bargains. And so Elaine is the older sister and she tends to do stuff with these little like fairy things, and Delphine doesn't really as much. And so we see Elaine as she's like making small bargains with the fairies because their farm is not doing well. We see more and more as Elaine has to like maybe make bigger bargains. I don't really have any thoughts other than it is reading a little more historical than like fantasy for me, but I will check back in later once I've read more and I can give you more thoughts. But overview, that's what we're doing so far in this. So I am about 50%. I think I'm a little more, I don't know, about 50% into this. And I don't know how I'm feeling. I feel like this has happened to me with books recently, that there's something that it has all the ingredients for something I should like, but it's just not working that well for me. I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna finish this and end up giving it like a 3-star. Like there's nothing that I really dislike. It just feels a little boring to me. For one, I think that if you like, so let me grab stuff. Okay, so I don't have this one, but if you liked Divine Rivals for the like historical with light fantasy elements, I feel like maybe you could like this. It's got the similar vibe, just not a war story or anything like that, but like where it's just a sprinkle of magic really set in like a historical time period. Or like the Midnight Bargain, that was also one that was like that, and A Far Wilder Magic. Now, Divine Rivals, I can't remember what I gave it, but probably like a 3.5. I think this was like a 3, and then this was a 5. So they don't always work for me. This really, really worked for me, and the magic was a little bit simpler, but we also explored the magic a lot more and like how it worked. Where this, it's upside down, this is like dealing with the fae, but like not. Like we're starting to get some more of that, but it's more about the way offerings and stuff are used in their community and like the way it's been used in the community, but not, I don't know, it doesn't feel as magical. It feels more like folktale-y. I just feel like it's a story I've kind of read before. You know, it's a failing farm. They're trying to save the farm, and then there's like a toxic relationship and a woman who like is kind of stuck in that. I've read things that I really really like in that kind of vein where there's like, you know, women's rights and fighting for women's rights. But I think because I'm not falling in love with the like story or the characters, exploring those things just feels kind of like the same as what I've read before. But I do think that if you have liked these and Divine Rivals, like I think you have a good chance of maybe liking this if you are still like excited about that type of topic. But for me, it's just a little bit boring, and I feel bad because like I don't really have something to nitpick other than I want it to be more magical, and I just want to be more invested in the characters. It feels like their struggles and stuff I should feel very deeply because they are going through a lot, but I feel disconnected from them. So it's just not hitting like the way that I think it's supposed to. I just think at the end of the day, it's probably gonna be like a 3 star. I'm hoping it picks up. I'm hoping it gets like into fairy stuff, you know? But I don't think it will. I'll report back when I've read more and hopefully have more thoughts and opinions to give you because I feel like I'm not giving you much at the moment. Good morning. I am trying to do my makeup in a new location, so we'll see how that goes. But I wanted to talk to you about the Fairy Bargains Prospect Hill because I was going to update at 70% and then I didn't, and now I'm finished. And I just have no things to say about it. I got to the 70% mark and I was just like, I'm still bored. Um, and I just didn't feel like there was anything I could really say, except for that the end, like 65-ish percent of the book, from 65% on, it felt like a different story. Like we dove into something completely different. And so that was more interesting out of all of the things than the beginning. But the beginning felt like just a historical novel about like family, like two sisters and like what they are going through. And it was a little slow, and like the conflict of that I felt like kind of resolved quickly. And then we got into this like other thing where we're like doing more of the magical side of things. But I don't feel like the payoff was there because the beginning was so boring. So I feel like I'm gonna go with like, I don't know, what, 2.5 to 3 star. I think like 2.5. I just like, I wanted it to be over so bad. And I was like speeding up. I was listening on audiobook too, and I was speeding up the audiobook just so like I could be done with it because I wanted to like get off my shelves. And I have a hard time with when I DNF something. I'm always like, well, maybe I'll go back and finish it. So then I can't like feel fine about removing it from my shelves. And so I wanted to finish it so that I could actually say like, okay, I'm done and remove it. So I did, and it was fine. Like I don't think that it did anything necessarily horrible. It's just like too slow for me. I like historical in my books. Like like historical mystery and I like historical fantasy. What is happening? This lighting makes everything look different when I'm doing my makeup. Yeah, so I like historical mystery and I like historical fantasy. I don't tend to like historical just like fiction, and this read a little more historical fiction to me. I do think the comparisons I made earlier are still there, like Divine Rivals, the Midnight Library, nope, the Midnight Bargain. I don't know how I forgot that. And like A Far Wilder Magic, things like that. I do feel like they are apt comparisons, but I just think the Midnight Bargain did it a lot better, and Divine Rivals too, because I feel like the magic in this is like dealing with fae. It just didn't feel, I don't know, that magical to me. It felt like just such a side part of the story that we were just getting this. So yeah, I wish that we had gotten just more magic to make it a more compelling story. Sorry, I'm not looking at the camera while I'm talking to you. I'm not very good at doing things while talking. Overall, I think it's like a 2.5 to 3 star. I don't know. We'll see what my rating changes by the end of the month, but I didn't hate it, but I just really feel like it did nothing for me. And if I had never, oh, I forgot my chin. If I had never read it, I would have been fine. Like, I don't feel like I was missing out on it, but I do think like I will try Rowena Miller again because she writes books, especially if she was writing historical fantasy, that I'm interested in, but I just hope that maybe she like condenses because like it did not need to be as long as it did. I think if everything was condensed, the parts wouldn't have felt so slow. We just spent so much in two halves of different stories, kind of like they relate, but I don't know. It's morning and I don't know if I'm making complete sense. This is the first time I'm trying like liquid blush and stuff, and I'm very nervous. Okay, little bit goes a long way here, people. I think I've said this before on a video, but I never was a big like makeup person and I didn't know how to do like a lot of things. But my sister is really good at makeup. Like she loves makeup, is really into it. She used to do like people's makeups for prom and stuff like that. So she was like the go-to person. And so she taught me like in college how to do my makeup and maybe late high school, like going to college, and I have not done it different since. And so I was talking to her about it and she's like, maybe it's time we like change it up. And I was like, okay. So I got some liquid ones. I just went cheap. I went and got, I think this is Elf. Yeah, Elf brand. And I got like these two ones because I was like, well, I guess I should change it up. And I don't know. I don't like change. So we're having a hard time of it. Yeah, so I also added, I didn't say I added sunscreen to my routine because I needed to. So I was watching sprints with Stephanie from Stephanie Bookish and Aaron from Booked and Busy, and then Mel from Eleanor Reads. It was during like the Realmathon sprints, and they started talking about skincare, and I was like, they seem to know what they're talking about. So I was paying extra attention, and then they were talking about different sunscreens, and they mentioned this one called Black Girl sunscreen, and you can get it at Target, and they said like basically it doesn't leave any white because it's formulated for like dark skin, so that all the normal sunscreens like leave a white sheen, and for like white people it's usually fine, but for everyone else it's not. And so I don't like the white sheen, and I also don't like feeling it on my face all the time. And so I tried it, and this doesn't have an overly powerful SPF smell. Like it does a little bit because you're gonna get that, but it's not like the worst I've ever smelled. And it sits on my face really nice, and it does not leave a white sheen. They were right. And so thank you to them for getting me to wear sunscreen because I needed to do it really bad, and I just like don't because of the sensory like parts of it. I didn't like wearing it, and now it's been really easy. Like I've literally been doing it for like a week and a half or so, and doing it like every single day, like without fail, which is wild for me. Watch, I am sitting. You can go down. Okay. So, I'm gonna fix my hair, but I think what the plan is for today is, for one, any errands that I need to do, I need to get done today because it's the eclipse, and Indy is like one of the places you could see it really well. All the hotels are like sold out from people coming, so need to get like any groceries or stuff orders placed, and we got to pick up some stuff. And then for reading, I'm going to read Bloom, I think, and start this today because it's very short and I want to just read it in one go. I feel like it's going to be really good to like just read in one sitting. I feel like this would be a great book for that. So that's what I'm going to be reading now. And then, that was Pippi, by the way. And then I think for a spring activity, I want to go get bubble tea. So we're going to do that and go to a bookstore potentially. Oh, and I wanted to show, this is the sunscreen in case you were curious. I don't know if you can, how do the influencers do it? I think the sun's gonna shine too much, but this is a sunscreen. If you're just like in Target and want to look, it looks like that. So yeah, those are like the spring activities, and that's what I'm gonna be reading. So I'll see you later after I've changed and we go out to get bubble tea because it's 9 right now. It doesn't open until 11. I think we should. This is awkward. Family gets out of their car like literally right in front of us as I'm about to. Okay. Just don't turn around, family. I got my tea, and it's now like 50 degrees out. Oh, so many people at this mall. Okay, I just need to not care. And we're gonna go do one more errand, and then we're gonna go home and I'm gonna read Bloom. But I got my tea and I'm super excited about it, and it tastes really good. So it feels like spring, and I'm very happy about it. And it's not quite warm enough. Well, maybe it was a little warm enough. Maybe I will read outside today at some point. We'll see. Hopefully tomorrow is going to be good too. Maybe I can do it tomorrow. But okay, we're going to go home and I'm going to stop recording when people can see me do this. And I feel awkward about it.
Being gentle with how we feel. There's a charge in the room. I can feel all the fire rising. I'll handle with care. We will honor this tender space, giving time to let go. Peace comes as we pause, breathing in deep until there's calm. Peace comes as we pause, breathing in deep until there's calm. Only I'll make still this weather in me.
Okay, I'm 45 pages in, and this is only about 200 pages, so I wanted to give some initial thoughts. I'm really liking this so far. So we've got our main character who is moved to this town. She is originally from New York. Her name's Rosemary, and she moves because she got a job at a university, and she's in, she said, I think it was Columbia, in the University of Georgia. So she's in Georgia, and she got this like assistant professorship, and it's just about her. Like literally she just goes to a farmer's market and she meets this woman that she's just enamored by, and she just immediately starts like becoming obsessed with her and like falling in love with her, and she just goes back day after day to the farmer's market, and like she's in love with her, but like it is like obvious that it's like taking up all of her like time, and she is like seemingly like before she believed herself to be straight, but then is like realizing maybe she's not, and so it's like become like just a huge thing to her, and she's lonely as well because she's like all alone in this town, and she is kind of lost her way. So this has like become her focus, and it's just about like every week going back and seeing this woman. And then we've gotten like a sprinkle of a woman whose daughter is missing and has been looking for her, so it's very interesting. I really love the writing in here. I'm gonna just read like the first paragraph because I feel like it really invokes like the type of writing that she's using in here. So it says, the modern world is severely lacking in magic, and those who crave it are at a constant disadvantage because they are desperate and it's in short supply. Some places, amusement parks, county fairs, museums, old bookstores, can temporarily fill the void, but there will always be people who check every armoire for a door to Narnia, every rabbit hole for a road to Wonderland. One such person is Ro, born Rosemary Denton, age 27, whose life imploded last year, leaving her an absolute wreck. Like the descriptions of like the farmer's market, it says there's a certain sorcery to such a market, rows of stalls and tents filled with homemade cinnamon buns, leggy tomato plants, bear-shaped jars of wildflower honey, vegetables still dusted with dirt, rosy peaches with raindrops trapped in their fur. Like stuff like that. It's just like very beautifully written, but not overly flowery. It's just like very beautifully descriptive. I feel like this cover really explains like the vibe of the book. It's like an eerily beautiful feeling, like the town and the people and the main Ash, who's like the love interest, is very like perfect and beautiful and like a dreamlike quality to it. But then there's like this underlying like weirdness where you're like, what is going on? And also the obsession adds just like a little bit of like, what's the word, overall tension and eeriness to the story. And so I really like that. I really love atmosphere, and I feel like this is giving great atmosphere. And I feel like Rosemary is an interesting character to follow because she is so lonely and just like trying to figure herself out in her life and all alone. Seeing her and just the ways that she thinks about the world and how she goes about like making decisions and stuff, I just really find myself fascinated by following her. There's a lot of like food imagery in here too, so if you like that, there's a lot of that. Like there's cupcakes and baked goods and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm loving it. And it's a very fast read. Like I read 40 pages in like no time at all. So I'm really happy I got this because I think this is gonna be my kind of book. I don't know what you would classify this as. If it would be classified as like a literary horror, I'll have to tell you more too. It's very like vague on what the horror is too. Like it's just got this underlying feeling that something's gonna go wrong and that something's not quite right, but it's still very easily flow through. I'm trying to think of books that I feel like this could be similar to. Okay, immediately what comes to mind, and very different like stories, not necessarily the same stories, but in the way that the characters are kind of acting like everything's normal, but like you as a reader know that things aren't normal. Like you can understand that there's something else going on while the characters are kind of acting like this is like daily life and not really seeing anything. So it reminded me a lot of Catherine House from that sense, or We Have Always Lived in the Castle, or Comfort Me with Apples. All these like main characters have something underlying going on, and you just see them throughout the story start to understand more and more that weirdness is happening, but you as a reader are like clued in first. So I feel like especially these two, this one gets like more weird, I think, than what's like happening in here so far. But all of these I think would be good maybe comp titles if you like that feeling that these gave you of like unsettled but like you're unsure why. I think that maybe this would be a good one to try out. Also, it's sapphic, so if you're looking for like a queer story, horror story like this, that's also one that you could try. And yeah, I think we're going to be diving into like obsession and something else. I don't know. I have a feeling there's more to this book than just like love and obsession. I think that there's going to be some weird stuff. I just have a feeling. Have a feeling. So, I'm going to finish. I'm definitely going to finish this today and I'll let you know more. But so far, it's really good. I'm liking it. And it's a very good springtime horror. I finished. And yeah, I feel like this is 5 stars for sure. Like perfect kind of horror of like obsession and kind of the idea of like falling in love and like overlooking a lot of things. And also there's like this theme of like finding out like more about her sexuality as she's like encountering this relationship with a woman for the first time. And so like there's a lot about like finding herself, but then because of that also overlooking a lot of things. And the end, wow. The last like I feel like last like 30 pages or so was crazy. This book like is a very slow burn in terms of the horror. Like it's just a little like you're like something's definitely going on, but like it's hard to tell exactly what, but then the end is like explosive. So I feel like it's paced well though. Like for 200 pages, I don't feel like necessarily I needed more of the like horror elements because I feel like the build up was good because you needed like the relationship side of things to build first. And so I really liked it. I thought it was really good. Also perfect for spring. It had very much like farming, farmers markets, food descriptions of like sweets and tomatoes, and like yes you could say that that's more summer, all those things, but I feel like it really works for spring as well. And so I really really liked it. It was creepy and it was good, and it was just like a slow burn kind of horror, but really like ramps up, and the end was just wild. So 5 stars from me. Really happy I read it. We'll see what I decide to pick up next, but for now, yes, this was really great to read in one sitting, by the way. I thought I wanted to do that, and I think it was a really good idea because 200 pages is like just enough for like reading for a good couple hours for me, but I think it paced itself really well that like reading it in one sitting just worked out really well to keep the momentum going. So yeah, I would recommend if you can, or if you're in a reading slump and you really like horror and you want something to get you out of it, like I feel like this is a good like size to kind of get you out of a reading slump because you can like finish it in one sitting and feel, accomplished. So that's that. I have that done, and yes, I will see you later. Please ignore this. I'm low on spoons today, so this is the best we're getting. But I am 20% into Shinlende by Darcy Little Badger. It's the prequel, as I said, to Alatsue. And one, this was a really perfect spring pick because in spring I really love myself like a little mystery. I really get into mysteries in like spring and summer, and then I kind of peter off in like fall and winter. And this is like scratching that itch where it's still a bit cozy because it's young adult, but it's also very engaging because of the world and the characters that Darcy Little Badger writes. So we're basically following Alatsue's grandmother as her mom like basically goes and finds people who are missing by tracking them into like the woods and stuff, and she has hunting dogs that she can track. There is a ghost dog as well in here, which I really love. And we're following Shane as she goes with her mom on these trips and stuff sometimes, but then there's a trip where her mom goes and she goes missing, and we literally I'm 19% in and her mom like has just gone missing, and so we're trying to figure out what's happening to her. And there's like magic involved in this world. There's just so much like cool magic. There's like fairy rings. Side note, if you hear my husband doing dishes, just please ignore it. But there's like fairy rings, and there's like she can raise ghosts from the dead. Shane also has that ability. Same with in a last way. There's werewolves. There could be vampires. Like it's just like a very cool world where magic is kind of accepted in daily life, and it's just part of the story. So far, I'm feeling like you can read one or the other. You don't necessarily need both because for the most part, like they feel like separate stories. You just know that they're the same family line, and you're getting some mention of, well, so Alatsue calls it her sixth great grandmother. Yeah, baby. And for Shane, it's her fourth great grandmother. So you get some like mentions of her, but other than that, like I don't feel like they overlap very much. And it's saying it's a prequel to Alatsue, so you could start here, or I feel like you could start with Alatsue and then now read this. Like it's very much you can read them separately, it feels like at this point. So I'm like super engaged. I sat down and read 20% in no time at all. So I feel like it's just one of those stories you just slip back into. She just has such a good writing style that like really captures the character and the setting right away. We're in Texas, and we're getting like slowly getting backstory of Shane's life and her family's life intermixed with how the world works. There's a little bit less of how the world works than Alatsue, so I feel like maybe if you like really strong world building, starting with Alatsue might be better because I do feel like the how the world works like is a little more fleshed out. So yeah, we're getting that. We're getting like some backstory into Shane's grandfather and like her relationship with her grandfather and her mom's relationship with her grandfather. And then we get to see like insights into her mom like tracking missing people, and like in this case she's tracking missing children. And so there's that. I would say if you're worried too about that kind of content, like so far that hasn't been handled in like a harm to children kind of way. It's more like lost in the woods kind of way, if that makes sense. So just know that that is a thing. Like there are children going missing. I'm going to continue reading and I'll check back in with more updates, but so far I'm loving it. Just like I did with The Lat's Away. It's just a really good YA. So I'm now 70% into, I think in the book it said it was Shane Lene. I am struggling to pull my thoughts together. Not because the book's not good. Hold on. Am I crooked? Not because the book's not good, but because my brain is mush today. A lot and not a lot has happened. So I feel like this book is really exploring the Fae realm, which was something that was like mentioned in Lat's Way, but not explored a lot. There was different like parts of magical world that was explored more, and in this we're really exploring Fae and like the lore and stuff behind it. And we're watching Shane really have to like figure stuff out because her mom is missing, so she's in charge of her brother. She's got her grandfather there too, but like it's really on her to like figure stuff out. And so we're seeing her just take like the lead role. I feel like this one reads a little slower to me than Lat's Way did because it's a lot more into like figuring out how fairy rings work. And so they're like having to track down people like trying to learn about it. So it feels more academic in the sense. And I think that I'm just enjoying it like a little bit less than Lat's Way. There's something that just feels a little more like formulaic for me, but I still really like it. And I still feel like Darcy Little Badger like really pulls you in the writing and in the world, and it just feels like I already know the characters really well. Being able to see through Shane's eyes and like you get more of her history and just her family dynamics. There was a part that did get me about like her family's past and stuff. All of that I find really interesting. I just think part of the mystery element has just been a little slow for me, but otherwise I'm really liking it. And I think if you like Lat's Way, you would enjoy this as well. So I'm gonna finish it today because this is an arc on NetGalley. I only have one more day, so I have to finish it today. But I can definitely do it. I only have 30% and it reads pretty quickly. So I'll finish it and let you know like final thoughts and reading. Hi, editing Brie here, and I just realized that I never wrapped up my final thoughts for Shane Lene. I feel like I said a lot of what I wanted to say in the previous ones, but by the end, I do feel like it ended up being a 4-star. Lat's Way for me was a 5-star, and I think that this one, it just was a little slower. But that being said, I don't think that it was a bad thing that it was slower. I think it actually was working to its advantage in the kind of story it wanted to tell. And this one very much deals with grief, working through loss of family members and things like that. So I think if that's something you really like to explore, I think this one's going to hit you a little bit harder than maybe a Lat's Way did, because a Lat's Way felt more like a fun adventure, and this one felt like Darcy Little Badger was really trying to explore grief. And I think that she did it really well. I just think that for me, I was thinking it was going to be more of a classic mystery, and it's really not. It's really about Shane's journey and working through a lot of things that she's not worked through before, and also the feeling of grief while it's also mixed up in racism, because a lot of things that happen are due to how her people are treated, and knowing that those things were preventable if resources were given to them, and things that happen after certain events, how people handle other events and take advantage of things, I think are all things that really Shane has to explore. And she has to explore her like anger and sadness and all these emotions surrounding these things. So I think that it's a really, really good message, and I think it has a lot of really great things to say. But pacing wise, it was just a little bit slow for me, and it just didn't have that same exact spark that I loved from Lat's Way. And I think that's truly because it's supposed to be a more somber, like a book. So both have its merits. I just think that they're just definitely trying to explore different things, and they have a different mood to them, I guess you could say. One, to me, Lat's Way is a little bit brighter and exciting, even though she also is dealing with grief. She is like, it feels more adventure to me. So it's not like exciting isn't the right word. It just, a Lat's Way is much more of an adventure story and her coming into her own, and like kind of a coming of age story, and like realizing her true potential and her strength, where Shane's story in Shane Lene is much more about working through grief and trauma and coming to terms with those things. I just think it was a little bit darker than Alat's Way. Sorry for this lighting. It's getting out of control. But that being said, still really would recommend it, and it's definitely a high 4-star, maybe like a 4 to 4.5 star for me. Just not quite a 5. Really, I don't think that necessarily has to do with anything other than pacing. So, yes, I will let you get back to Back in Time, Ray, and see the rest of the vlog. So I am reading Una out of order, and I've got to page 83, nope, 84, and I'm really interested in it right now. So basically, we're following Una, and we start off on her 18th birthday, which is also New Year's Eve. And she's at a New Year's Eve party, and she has like a lot of life decisions she has to make. She's deciding if she wants to go with her band on tour or if she's going to go to London for school, and she hasn't decided. And she has a boyfriend, and you're meeting like her other bandmates and like friends and stuff. So it's 1983 is the year it's turning into. So going from 1982 to 1983. So then she fast forwards and she is in 2015. So she jumps to 2015. And so her body is the age of a 51-year-old, but her brain is 19 because she's turning 19. It's like she has to, in the first time she like jumps, she's having to like learn everything about herself and what's happening. And so it's like very confusing. And I've just gotten to the part where she makes like another jump. So like another year has passed, and basically every New Year on her birthday, she jumps to a different part of her life. And so like I'm just getting to where now she's more like knows what to expect. But I feel like the first part where she first like jumps into the new life felt very real, and I feel like it's slightly reminiscent of like those shows, that movies and stuff that have like where you either jump into your like older body or stuff like that. Like I'm trying to think of there's one with the guy from Friends, and I can't remember, but he like jumps back into his like younger self and has to like figure stuff out. I feel like it's reminiscent of those type of movies, but I feel like it's dealing a lot more with like grief, and it's bringing up a lot of interesting concepts because there's like so much that she can like write letters to herself. So there's so much that she knows because she's like been to the future. So like it's hard to explain, but like the year before 2015, so 2014, that self that was in that timeline like would write notes to her to help explain. So she like has a letter from herself. And so like there's certain things she does know. Like she knows how she made her money because she like does stuff with the stock markets and stuff. So like that's interesting. But then there's certain things she like doesn't want to tell herself, like how certain things in her life happen because some things are like really hard. And so she learns some things in that first time jump about people in her past. And so it's like dealing a lot with like grief and loss of people, but also like loss of herself because she's like not going to experience her life in a linear way. And so like there's people that she just left that like mean everything to her that she's like not going to see again for probably a long time because she never knows like what year she's going to jump into. So I find like all of that really interesting, and I think the way that is playing with time is really interesting in how you would feel because like also mentally she's 19. So she doesn't have all like the wisdom of 51 years and like all the life experiences of it. So she's just like a young person trying to like navigate this life where things are confusing. But the one thing I do appreciate in here is that she does have her mom, and then she has a friend who he like really helps to guide her through things, and I feel like that adds like a warmth to the story. Like there's a bit of this like family feeling to it, even though so far it's just been like the two of them. Their friendship is really strong, and I really appreciate that. So yeah, I feel like it's balancing lightheartedness with a bit more emotional things too because she is dealing with so much. I feel like the way that she is experiencing things, I can see like how I would feel in those situations too. It's like the different like waves of emotion she goes through. It's like not a linear process, and I think that that's like a powerful part of the book. It's not like she just like jumps into the new timeline and just like accepts it like you kind of see sometimes from movies or like shows. You can see like because it's like made up, this feels more like this could really happen to someone and like how you would actually handle it. Like it's making me think about how I would handle it. And let me tell you, I don't think I would handle it well. I'm excited to keep reading and see like what more of the timelines we get and like what more pieces to the story we get. My goal is to read probably like 100 or so more pages today, but we'll see. I will see you when I have more thoughts on this. I wanted to update. It's the next day. It's Monday. Today's the day of the eclipse. Noah said we have to go out around like 1:45 to start seeing stuff, I think. And then I think the actual eclipse is at like 3. And I'm interested to see how many people are around because it's supposed to be crazy. Signs are up everywhere, like no parking and stuff, because last time, I guess, there was like cars like backed up for hours, like 3 hours, just standstill traffic, and emergency vehicles and stuff couldn't get through. So they've been trying to like make sure that emergency vehicles and stuff can still get where they need to go. So I'm interested to see if there's a lot of people. Though we're just at our apartment, so I don't know if it'll be as busy as if we were going like there's like parks and stuff that are doing things. That's not to do with Una out of order. So let me talk to you about the book. I'm now on page 166. So just about halfway, if not halfway through, and I'm just finding this book so fascinating because it's really making me think about what I would do in those scenarios. It's just interesting because I think people expect certain things of her, like especially people who don't know what's going on when she like comes to in the new year. The third one, she's older, and so mentally they expect her to be that age, but like she's only 21. She's had 3 leaps is what they call them. So she was 18 to 19, then 19 to 20, now 20 to 21. It's interesting because it's like she's so young, but then she's like living out like older periods of her life. And so it was just fascinating. And then there was this one scene in one of the chapters that something happens, and I was talking to my husband because it was like it's kind of a complicated scenario, because she's like leaping into situations that she doesn't know where she's going to end up, and she doesn't know who she's with or like what's going on in her life. And so she tries to leave herself like notes, but like that's past Ona, like so it's the year previous is Ona like leaving herself notes, and like does she know if she'll get them or not, and can she change her future stuff. So it's a very interesting concept. And then I just feel like having to like restart your life all the time would be really lonely. In terms of like the actual book and not just the concepts, but the writing I think is good. It feels very contemporary feeling with like this time travel twist, but the writing itself is like there's a lot of like wittiness and sarcasm and stuff like that. There's more like sex than I thought there was going to be, but it's not actually bugging me very much because I'm someone who doesn't read a lot of that in books, but I feel like this is done in a way that it makes sense to me. I do want to say that there was a scene with Una's friends when they're out, and there's some transphobia that happens to them. I just wanted to call it out because I think the language used and everything can be triggering, so I wanted to like let you know. It was like one scene and it was kind of over very quickly, but it is in there, so just know that. But I think that there's a lot of fun in this book too. It feels a little bit nostalgic as well because like you're going from the 80s to the 90s to the 2000s. It's just like fun to see like Ona experience those different decades at different times. In the first jump, she's in 2015, so she starts having all this technology we have today, like Instagram and stuff. But then if she goes back, she can go back to not having cell phones and stuff like that. So I feel like that specific period of history is really interesting because there was a lot of like technology change for her to also have to deal with, and trying to remember what people know versus they don't know, and like who's alive and who's not. Or she like references music because music is a big part of this, and trying to like remember if a band's even started yet or famous yet is really interesting. So I'm really liking it. I think it's giving me so much to think about, and I definitely want to finish it soon because it's a really easy read as well. Like I seem to be flying through it. I really like time travel stuff, and I feel like this way of doing the time travel is one I haven't seen before, and I find it really interesting. Do I think it's totally fleshed out in terms of like if you're someone who likes world building and magic systems and you like need explanations? I don't think that that's what this book is going to give. I think it's more commentary on life itself and not having to do with like the time travel magic side of things. So just know that it definitely reads more like literary fiction to me. That's all I have to say for now. I'll see you in a little later. I hope you can hear that. That's a woodpecker on the top of our chimney. He's decided it's a tree and he's going to try to peck it. He's been here 3 days. I don't know how to get a woodpecker to stop. I don't know how to get him to believe it's not a tree. You can go outside and we can see them on our roof. And like there's tons of these chimneys around. Why ours is like the desirable one, I have no idea. I think I'm gonna lose it. It's like reverberating through the house too. It's like so loud. Just so loud.
It's not quiet.
Because it like goes through the metal of the chimney and everything. The boys are very confused and they keep going to the fireplace to see what's up. Also, like, do you think he's gonna get in at some point?
No.
I have no reading updates for you. I just needed to show this. Because I'm losing my mind. Oh my god. Oh. He's out there too. Like, we went out there and he's like calling to his other woodpecker friends, like, yeah, I found a really good tree, guys. It's not a tree, my man. It's not a tree. And I need you to go to the tree that's literally right next to us and use that instead. But in other good news, let me show you. We do have, oh gosh, I almost fell over. We do have, I don't know if you're going to be able to see, a dove right there. And I think she's laying eggs because she's been there for a couple days just like nesting. So that's really adorable. I'm happy about her. I'm not happy about this woodpecker situation. All right, well, I'll see you later. So I finished Una out of order, and it was so good. It was like simultaneously like what I was expecting and not what I was expecting. I feel like this is not a book that necessarily like surprises you with the things that happen in it, because there's just a lot that like you would expect it to cover when it's covering like her going through so many sections of her life. And so a lot of the themes like grief and friendship and like making sense of your life and who you want to be and how you want to live your life are all like things I would expect it to cover. So in that sense, like it's not a surprising book, but I think just it was executed in a really great way. I loved the writing, and there were parts like literally had me crying even though I like knew they were going to happen. I feel like Una as a character, she was flawed and she was figuring it out, and we watch her have to figure out this like impossible situation. It just really made me connect with her character so well, even from like the beginning chapters. I feel like she felt like a real character to me, but like the more we get through the book, the more I just like got to see her have to grapple with so many things that I can't even imagine like how I would work through them. And so it just was really cool to see her character development throughout the books, and also like inklings of things to come, because I feel like this wraps up in a way that like the ending makes a lot of sense, but there's so many parts of her life you don't get to see, so many years of her life that you're not going to get to see how they play out. And I think that that was just like really intentional, obviously by the author, but also it would make the book a lot longer. But the parts that you did see, I feel like really highlighted, I guess, the point she was trying to make. So I really, really liked it. I think I'm going to go with 5 stars. I won't say that this 5-star feels like it's going to be like my new favorite book, but in terms of literary fiction, I do feel like it's a favorite book, and it's shown me like more of things I can pick up in this vein. So like if you have any suggestions for more books like this one, I'd love to hear them, because I think that this is something in the genre that I could really enjoy. And yeah, I really love, I think, books that play with time and make you think about your life in a different way, and this really did that. So yeah, I feel like I'm like not emotional about it, but that's because like the last bit of the book had just me bawling my eyes out, so you know, the emotions are gone. But we're about 5 minutes away from when eclipse stuff is supposed to start happening, so I'm gonna put this down. I will probably pick up Bunny by Bora Chung next, and I think short like horror stories might be the way to go for this, and this will probably be the last book of the vlog. But yeah, that's Una Out of Order. I'm really happy I got to this. It's been on my shelves for about a year and a half, and so I'm really happy that I did get to it because it was really good. Really, really good. So I am now reading Cursed Bunny, and made it to the 70 pages of it. I'm reading it slower than I would like to because it's not very long, but I've been reading like a story at a time, so I would like to try to just prioritize and finish it because it's not that long to read. So I'm on the 4th story, so I think I've read a total of 3. And the first story was like about a woman who like goes to the bathroom and then like her waist becomes like an entity. It's about her like talking to it and it's calling her mother. I don't know if I understood that one. Like the flap says that it's supposed to be a wildly original debut from a rising star of Korean literature, surreal, chilling fables that take on the patriarchy, capitalism, and the reign of big tech with absurdist humor and a sometimes literal bite. And so with that one, I don't think I was able to recognize at all what it was trying to talk about. So that one went over my head. But then the next one was about a woman who was pregnant and she didn't like have a father, and it was about everyone trying to make her find a father. And I thought that one was interesting, and I got more what it was talking about. And then the story that is Cursed Bunny, that one was my favorite so far, and it was a bit longer, I think. Not by much, but than the other stories. And that one is like about a cursed object, a cursed bunny, and greed, and like how greed can take over, but then also like revenge, and talking about like the prices of revenge. And so I thought that one was interesting. And then the next one I have is called The Frozen Finger, and I have no idea what to think about that one. So far, I think I'm enjoying it, but I do feel like maybe it's going over my head a little bit. I'm not very good with stories that are saying something, but it's a very vague way of saying it. So like I read the Nevo Empress of Salt and Fortune, that series. I really like it, but I know that I'm not getting the most out of it. I know it's talking about deeper things and I'm just not understanding. And that's how I kind of feel in here, that I think deeper things are being explored, but I'm not getting it. I think I'm just not smart enough to get this fully. So yeah, I would love to hear like thoughts if you have any down below of like what you took away from the stories, because I think a lot's going over my head and I wish it wasn't. I feel kind of dumb reading this, but I also like it, and they're weird, and they're definitely graphic. So if you don't like the graphic things, I feel like the first 2 stories were pretty graphic, and had me like, ooh, didn't want to look at it too hard. But the Cursed Bunny one wasn't as. So I'm enjoying it in terms of like the horror level, but knowing that I'm not understanding fully, if that makes sense. So I'm going to keep reading, and I will check in probably just when I finished and let you know what I thought of the rest of the stories and give you my final rating. But so far, I'm enjoying it. So I finished Cursed Bunny, and I think I was about 50% the last time I checked in. And I really don't have a lot to say about this. This was a weird book. Not only is it gross and grotesque, like there's a lot of just like scenes in here that are odd and really made me feel like the gag reflex. But outside of that, there's a lot that I just like didn't understand what I was supposed to be taking away from this. And a lot of stories that like I didn't see how it was all interconnected, I guess. Like it does say in the front that it says it is surreal, chilling fables that take on the patriarchy, capitalism, and the reign of big tech with absurdist humor and sometimes literal bite. And I don't know if I like fully got that from this. I don't know. Some of them I just felt like it was like dark to be dark, but it wasn't really like giving me what I wanted. And maybe it was like too on the nose for some things, which is weird because traditionally I haven't minded that. I would say some books I've given like 5 stars, is like Chinging All Stars is an example of one that I either gave 4.5 or 5. And that one, I could see people saying it's very on the nose. But it worked for me, where this just didn't. And I think it's because the stories were so vague in a way, or like just kind of weird. Like there's one about a person being like held in a cave, and then he escapes, and then he's kind of just becomes another slave and like has to fight in these rings, and then he gets out of that. And like by the end I didn't really understand what was supposed to be. There's like another one about an android, and that one was really short and I didn't get it. And again, like there just didn't seem to be as much cohesion. So I think overall I would give this 3 stars. I didn't dislike it. And each story I read, like I think I just left it being like, oh, that was fine. They kind of like started off where I was more interested, and the more I read, the less interested in some of the stories I got. And like the last one I just didn't really care too much about. I don't know. I don't know if it's anthologies as well, because I haven't really traditionally read a lot of anthologies. I don't know how much they work for me because I've never felt like a short story person. That being said, I do love novellas, but I think like multiple short stories might just like not be my thing. So I don't know. I wouldn't like say don't give it a try, but it just wasn't my favorite. So these are the books I read in this vlog. I'm going to use Alatsway as a stand-in for Shane Lende, which is the prequel. And I'm going to rank them, I think, from least spring on the bottom to most spring on the top. So I think this is my order. So on bottom, I have Cursed Bunny. So I feel like outside of the name, it doesn't really give any spring. Then Shane Lene, I feel like it feels more summer because of the heat and everything. Like they're in Texas. So to me, it didn't read as spring, but I do think somewhat the adventure and the like somewhat whimsy magicalness of it all did lend a little bit to spring. Now, Una Out of Order is a weird one because I think most of it takes place in the winter for the most part, but it's also throughout her whole year of her life. It actually feels like a good book to read in spring because of like the messages and like the time travel and just like thinking about life and how you're living it. I feel like that felt very spring to me. Then we have The Fairy Bargains Prospect Hill. And while I didn't enjoy it very much, I think there's a lot of imagery of the farm and picking, harvesting, those kind of things. So to me, that felt very spring. And then finally, Bloom definitely felt the most spring because we're dealing again with like farmers markets and the like descriptions and lushness of it all felt spring to me. All the descriptions were very beautiful and like flowers blooming, that kind of feeling, and that felt extremely spring. So I think it would be a great horror for spring if you're looking for one. So that's my ranking in terms of spring. Now, not all were wins, but I did have some wins in here, and I really enjoyed like getting in the mood of spring for this reading vlog. So I hope you enjoyed, and if you have any spring recommendations, leave them down below so we can all chat in the comments. But I really appreciate you watching, and I will see you next time.